Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining us this morning. I'm so sorry that we are late this morning. As usual, we're being sabotaged. It seems like the last couple of weeks we've been excessively sabotaged, and so we've been spending a little time trying to figure out if our audio is working, our video is working, and if we can hear each other. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Romola D. I'm here this morning with Dr. Katherine Horton and with NSA whistleblower Melton Stewart. I'm not entirely certain if Dr. Millicent Black will join us. She's still recovering from a recent surgery that she had. And if some of you have been following along with Dr. Horton's channel, you'll see that Dr. Horton and Dr. Black did a video last night, a kind of informational video as to what's going on with her at the hospital, and really putting out an emergency appeal for help from other people, from human rights advocates everywhere, listening to her and asking them to intervene and write on her behalf to local police, FBI, and other authorities to really go after this guy who is engaging in some massive exploitation and crime on her person using BCI chips and a CBI system. This is a brain-computer interface system and a satellite, which may sound very sci-fi and high-tech to some, but I think to regular visitors of this channel, we all know that this technology and other neurotechnologies are currently being tested, operated, and used on people. And very nefariously, I might add, because people are suffering a great deal because of this. And this really is why we're here on Techno Crime Fighters Forum. We're here to have an open and public conversation about surveillance abuse and about the horrific use of neurotechnologies and electromagnetic weapons on civilians, both in the US, where Karen and I are, and Millicent, and in Zurich, Switzerland, where Katherine is, and in all of Europe, where, Melanie Richin is, where Jeff Godwin is, various other people who've been on various of our shows and podcasts live. So, as everybody knows, this is a worldwide program, and unless people step up to the plate and start speaking openly about it, we cannot bring attention to these incredible crimes. We all know this is also because of the incredible growth of the military-industrial complex, and until humanity steps forward and starts saying, no, we do not consent to the use of these deadly weapons, then these weapons will continue to be being used on us. So we're here to sort of fill in the gap and, to take that mantle and do that right now at this period in time. So with that, I will turn the floor over to hopefully Karen, if she wishes to step in.
Or afternoon, actually, sorry. I'm going to say that I have been collecting some papers from people who have signed and said, take me off the list that Karen Stewart is talking about in, or take me off the list letter. And I've been collecting those to send to various entities to see what kind of reaction we get. And I just read yesterday that Jeff Sessions, head of the Department of Justice, will be focused on investigating the FISA abuses. So now is the time. So I'm going to collect the last page signatures of everybody who sent me that page, and I will be sending it to Department of Justice head Jeff Sessions. So we'll see what kind of response we get from him. And I wanted to highlight an effort that other people made that I'm very proud of. Brian Marks in Florida got a group of people together to go to Jacksonville to hear General Hayden speak. And I didn't get the location, but it's some kind of college or something like that in Jacksonville, Florida. And he gave his usual kind of baloney spiel. And he, at the end of it, was taking questions. And Brian and his crew managed to ask him 3 questions. Reggie, I believe, asked him the question about what he knew about, or did he know about the fact that directed energy weapons were being used on American citizens, excuse me, innocent American citizens. And all he said was, nope. So I'm hoping...
Hard to believe.
It's, that's all he had to say. Nope. So that's pretty funny, but it's pathetic, but, and then somebody else got to ask another question or 2. But I think that because of the questions that Brian and his gang basically asked in public, Hayden cut the question and answer sessions short because he knows the jig's up. So I'm very proud of Brian and Reggie and the others who were there filming, because Brian has that on Facebook, and who had the courage to get up and ask those questions. So I do appreciate it. I'm very proud of them. They did a wonderful job, and they basically was a warning shot across the bow. We know, we're telling, we're speaking up. So I'm very proud of them.
Absolutely wonderful. So glad that Brian did that and the rest of his crew. Fabulous. We should send that video far and wide.
Yes.
I was just about to say that it's very important that people actually make a backup of that video, because I would say this is a public interest question, and his answer is relevant for court cases, because either he'll be gotten for, basically lying to the nation, and I'm pretty sure we can prove that by midday, or else, and that's his get out clause, he can claim total ignorance, in which case it means that some administrative level below him lied to him about crimes against humanity and the mass genocide of Americans, in which case we get even more people. So that's the beauty. It's now the win-win situation. We either get one bastard or we get the scores of bastards. There's no other way. So either his head rolls or a lot of other heads must roll.
Well, we do have one targeted individual that I'm not naming, who claims to have heard him basically targeting her, pointing her out for being targeted. And so he is a proven liar.
Well, we also have, I think Sherry has openly stated this, that, General Michael Hayden was walking about in a library in Massachusetts when she was in Massachusetts and being early targeted. So that's one little piece of info. And then another piece is Tyrone Dew. Is that his name? Yeah, I think so. He actually questioned Michael Hayden openly as well at a conference sometime in Virginia. And with a similar response, a kind of, I'll speak to you after the conference, I'll meet you outside, but no, lots of denial. But I think the record actually states otherwise, that Michael Hayden, General Michael Hayden, now, wasn't he, what exactly was his qualification? He was head of...
he was head of CIA and NSA for a time. And
that's correct.
To me, when somebody says, do you know anything about the targeting of innocent Americans with directed energy weapons? And his answer is nope. A responsible person would have said, no, I don't. Can you tell me more? Instead of cutting off the question.
If he really didn't know, and if this was something that was going on behind his back, that is exactly what he would have said, what any responsible person would have said, right? But here we have somebody who's very well aware of the use of directed energy weapons. About how could anybody in the CIA or NSA not be aware of the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate, which in fact deals with directed energy weapons? So you see, they obviously do. And I would venture to say that the CIA and NSA knows a whole lot more just from their own private use of it. But, they should at least know of the public domain information that's out there. They should at least profess openly awareness of the public domain information. And if they can't do that, and if they're saying no, like this guy, that strongly suggests guilt, it sounds like.
I think so. You have guilt or you have incompetence.
Yeah, both really bad for a man in his position.
I think so.
So I mean, I don't know what you can claim, to get out of, of the death penalty. I don't know, temporary insanity. I don't know, perhaps being neurotech for 2 minutes to behave like a complete idiot. I don't know. That's also really bad.
Well,
that's going
if
to
we want
proud,
If we want to think about that for a minute, as to who knows about directed energy weapons and about the use of directed energy weapons on civilian populaces, if we want to think about who exactly might be involved, I mean, think about it. Think he's, sharing that privileged position of absolute knowledge, which he is professing not to have any of, with people like Dick Cheney, George Bush, Barack Obama, John Brennan, James Comey, James Clapper. God, I forget their names, but all of them, right? All of these guys who were at the top of these agencies. How could they not know?
But he doesn't know this. Right.
Yeah. So it's very reportable, I think. So, yeah, I think I should take a look at that video and do a little write-up
Right.
on
Talk to
General
Brian
Michael
Marks and
Hayden's vast ignorance. Yeah.
yes. Give contact Brian and it's a good
I
story.
will.
It's a very good story.
I think so. One of the
Great.
quite seriously, ladies, because I think this piece of news is not just reportable; it's suable. It is definitely suable for several million Americans in the United States. You have the admission of high treason right there, recorded. Because he must be lying. I completely concur with your analysis. So I think this is incriminating, evidence. Now, the one thing that I would recommend urgently, Karen, can you say the name of this guy and what Facebook account this is posted on? Is it publicly accessible, this video? Because I think people should make a backup before that Facebook account gets shut down. Maybe in the next 20 minutes.
It is Brian Marks, and I'll see where he's got it posted, but I believe it is on his Facebook account.
Yeah, please, can you guys bring it up in the background so we point people to it? Because I'm absolutely serious. I mean, this is evidence. I'm not just talking. This is actual evidence.
Actually, maybe we could play it online if it's possible. Can we do that? Shall we do
Please,
that?
Yeah,
I'll find it. I would
in
do it, ladies, but yesterday evening I had an interview with Alfred Weber, and during the interview, when I wanted to follow, he said, okay, this is being live streamed on Facebook. I clicked on the Facebook link. It asked me to log in. And when I tried to log in, I discovered that they had blocked my Facebook account, even though I wasn't even using it. So, I think I posted 2, videos, and then I didn't use my Facebook account for a few months. And now they blocked it. So I don't know what has offended them. I think my mere existence must be against the community guidelines. So I can't log into Facebook,
You can't log into Facebook anymore. This is shocking, Katherine. But this is something I wanted to talk about today, actually. Right now, there are so many YouTube accounts that are being closed, as we know, right? Richie Allen's was closed.
Oh.
And I heard this morning from Stephen Shellen, actually. He left a note on one of my podcasts, left a comment to the effect that Victura's Libertas, Jim and Angie, their website has been shut down on YouTube.
What?
Yeah, they're not supposed to be talking about the fake shooting in Florida where there are no bodies because there are no people that go with any of those birth certificates for those names. I don't know that anybody died there.
Yeah.
It's still kind of questionable as to whether the FBI and police egged it on, allowed it to happen because they told kids there was going to be a drill. Don't worry about anything, or whether the whole thing was baloney. So we're trying to figure out, did these idiots get real children killed, or is the whole thing fake? Because it's one of the two.
Right, absolutely. And I think there are some people who have already gotten on the case, right? The usual analysts like Kevin Barrett and Jim Fetzer and Oli Damagard. I don't know the ins and outs of the story myself, so I can't speak to that either. But the one thing that I did do was I watched a few of the early videos where they had a few people actually come on camera. I think this was on various shows like Fox News and not CNN, some other shows saying that there was more than one shooter. And there was a guy in full metal garb and he was shooting. And this woman, who I think was a creative writing teacher, I think this is why I was listening, she said that she wondered why the police was there. But because she saw this guy in metal garb and he was actually one of the thugs who was shooting, one of the planted thugs. So, this, like many other of the false flag mass shooting ops that we've seen rolled out in the country, could very well be a setup, one of those, what do they call, drills that actually went live and they just didn't tell anybody. Because they're rolling it out as a mass psyop with the help of the media and with the help of that executive order which rolled back Smith and Munt, right, and permitted government propaganda to be unleashed on the public via the mainstream media.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And plus, one of the main spokes children, I saw a picture of him it was his graduation picture, apparently, from a school in California in 2015. But yet, he claims to be a student at the Florida high school, in 2018. Well, he must have been pretty stupid if they revoked his graduation and sent him back to high school for another 3 years. That's remarkably stupid.
This is sort of like the other story that Dr. Paul Marco covered, isn't it, Katherine? Where the kids at Sandy Hook started to show up at other mass shooting events.
I will get onto that in a moment. Yes, exactly. I wanted to put in two things actually. So yesterday, when I was talking to Alfred Weber, he told me that he was diversifying away from YouTube because, I mean, first of all, he had interviews with Richie Allen. I had 2 interviews with Richie Allen myself. And actually, I'm thinking, so Richie Allen's YouTube channel got deleted, completely deleted, with all the videos deleted, I think last week or just a few days ago. Now I'm actually thinking about putting in a complaint, if not actually, taking legal action along with all the other stuff against YouTube, because what they're doing is my 2 interviews were about directed energy weapons being used on the British population as well. They are public interest broadcasts. It's about crimes against humanity. Deleting those videos is actually blocking people from getting the message in the UK. And this is sometimes a message for survival, really, that this stuff is going on. People need to recognize what's happening to them. Now, by deleting my videos with Richie Allen, because of another video that has nothing to do with our interview, YouTube is, I think, conspiring to cover up crimes against humanity because they are blocking public interest broadcasts. So I'm absolutely serious. I want to make this legal point. I also want to make it in court. And I don't think they can go on like that because I don't know what their community guidelines are, but their community guidelines do not trump the public health and public, life sustenance and national security interests of the United Kingdom, I don't think, or any other nation for that matter. So I am massively annoyed about my videos having been deleted. Alfred's has been deleted. And when I talked to Alfred about it yesterday, he told me that, and this is how it ties in with the false flags, that he has just done an interview, and I think he was, I think the interview might have been with Ole Damegard, but they showed footage that was actual film footage during that interview that was shot by Paolo Fiora, who does the weekly protest in front of Westminster in the United Kingdom. So Paolo does a weekly protest, I think on Wednesday afternoons, when he's in Parliament Square and he's protesting against electromagnetic attacks on the population. When the false flag happened next to Parliament Square, he went up to the actual fence, and there was the gunman that was supposedly, I think, shot dead. I didn't even read the details of that false flag. But anyway, I think the gunman was meant to be shot dead. It's just that he's lying on the floor, and when Paolo is filming him through the fence, he's looking at the camera, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Now, that footage was shown on the video that Alfred had posted, and that was taken down by YouTube, and he got a community strike because it's against the community rules. Now, the question is, who might be the community? Is it the mafia? Is it literally organized crime, being the community in YouTube, that is determining the rules? Because I think for every other nation on the planet, including the British people, this is public interest information that we have a right to know about this stuff for national security, right? So
absolutely.
Very, very interesting. But it was basically, if I may just share my screen to prove this, I took a screenshot yesterday, and you can see here, I'm not sure if you can see in the image here, bottom right, it was at 4 minutes past 1 a.m. on the 1st of March, 2018, when I was talking to Alfred. Unfortunately, it's in German because I logged in from a German server, but it says Konto gesperrt, so it means account blocked. So this was for contact@stop007.org. This was the screenshot last night that I took. So this is my Facebook account having been locked without me having even used it, So I literally, it must be my ID that is against the rules. I think that would explain it. Actually, I think YouTube has just explained the targeting program. I think my existence is against community rules, and that's why my existence needs to be extinguished with directed energy weapons. Right? My life is being censored. Yeah.
No, your existence as somebody who's targeted is against community standards, because you see, the mafia cannot recognize anybody whom they are themselves targeting. I think you've made two very brilliant points, Catherine, and that is, both the fact that this is, which community are we talking about? And, the very fact that they are erasing videos like Paolo's, and the fact that this guy on the ground opened his eyes and looked up at him as he was shooting video of that scene, suggests that they want, rather, not we, they want only one interpretation, one view, one perspective, one point of view of that event, that parliamentary mass shooting false flag event. And that's their propagandized version. And anything that seeks to throw a spanner in the works and question that central narrative that they've got going over there is going to be targeted for removal, like Paolo's video. So, and that's sort of the kind of thinking behind their attacking all of these other channels. They don't want any other points of view. They don't want any questioning, any critical thinking, any basic intelligent inquiry. Because let's face it, the real intelligence right now is not emanating from the so-called intelligence agencies. It's emanating from the people on the ground who are doing the base analysis, looking at these events and doing some base analysis. So that whole questioning is being wiped out by people like Google and YouTube currently. But the point that you and Alfred made is brilliant, that, basically these are crimes against humanity that you and I are reporting. And so if YouTube chooses to scrub those videos, they are actively participating in the covering up of crimes against humanity. But I would say also that people like the New York Times are actively engaged in the cover-up of crimes against humanity with, disgusting articles like the one they put out in the summer of 2016, The United States of Paranoia. By choosing to call the reporting victims of massive military intelligence crime, calling them delusional, they are collaborating and participating in crimes against humanity.
Absolutely.
Every single newspaper outlet, every single television outlet.
Exactly. So
and
from the Guardian,
and media outlet like YouTube.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, and the Guardian.
It was delayed, so I just jumped in. Yes, exactly. And I think, what, with the executive order 13818, the one about human trafficking, if you find that all these people are conspiring to aid and abet human trafficking, can their assets also be frozen? That's the question, right? This is exactly the question. Can the assets of the the editor of the New York Times be frozen now that they brought out this shocking article by what's his name, Mick what's it,
I call him Mick Fake.
Yeah, Mick Fake, exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Mick Fake has been lifted out of the New York Times and has now been transferred to sunny California, where he's currently putting out a California newsletter and inviting subscriptions, and ending up in my Twitter feed, which was a mistake on his part. But clearly he wanted desperately to come to my attention. But, now I've noticed him, so of course I'm not going to stop talking about him. So who knows if Mick Fake was, an active collaborator or a kind of a, minion.
I do. He was an active collaborator.
Yeah, we're going for minion.
We're going for minion, who's also an active collaborator.
Yes.
Well, you have 2 points of view right there. So either way, the guy collaborated, right?
Knowingly.
So whether knowingly. So unfortunately, McFake is going down in history.
Yeah, he's not just going down in history. He's also going down in court before we're finished with this. Because this is absolutely serious. For everybody who's listening, I want you to know that if when we're reporting these cases, what you need to know is you have to make a PDF print of the McFate article, the United States of Paranoia, whatever it was called. It is actively smearing victims of a Holocaust. Right now, this is as bad as it can get. Right, so this is aiding and abetting crimes against humanity. This guy's a journalist. He's well paid. He's got all the time to actually look up the facts. Yet he refused to ignore the facts and to actively smear these people. So this means he's a criminal. Okay, he's in with the criminals. But this means everybody in the US has a claim against him. If you're a target, you've got a claim against this guy. Okay, And you have to take this seriously. You have to list all the people who have actually done stuff against you and prevented you from getting justice. And he's one of them. And he was stupid enough to actually put his name to it. I mean, in the communist system, we used to have a joke, right? And the joke used to go something like this. So the rules of communism are as follows. Rule number 1, don't think, right? Because everything was nuts. So rule number 1, don't think. Rule number 2, if you think, don't say it out loud. Rule number 3, if you say it out loud, don't write it down. And then rule number 4, if you write it down, don't sign it. And rule number 5, if you've written it down and you signed it, don't be surprised. All right. So this is exactly the same thing here. McFate has put it down in writing, his criminal conspiracy and aiding and abetting crimes against humanity. And he was stupid enough to sign it. You know, I mean, now he can't possibly be surprised. If I don't know how many millions of Americans are targeted, but it's a heck of a lot. You know, if he gets 1 million claims against, criminal damages, that's his problem. I hope his estates can take it, you know.
And you know what's very interesting right now, I think, is that there is a concern in certain quarters. Stephen Shellen certainly has raised it in his video and his comments, that it's the mention of targeting that is causing some of these channels to be taken down. So Stephen Shellen mentioned that he wasn't sure if it was perhaps Dr. Eric Hallstrom's video at a recent video at Richie Allen's channel that caused Richie Allen's channel to be taken down. And Victoria's Libertas, as you know, did a recent interview with him, with Stephen Shellen. They've done a few, I think. So, and actually, they have reported being somewhat targeted. And they actually went off the air for a little while. I think they experienced some of the symptoms and some of the elements of targeting, you know, the kind of the stalking and the huge cyber hacking and stuff. I don't know if they, what all they experienced, but some elements, they experienced some elements of targeting. And so they stayed off the air and then they came back. I know they were on Patreon because I saw them on Patreon. And now their channel has been taken down. So I just want to consider for a brief moment this question about targeting, the information about this targeting and surveillance abuse and the use of electromagnetic weapons in civilians being disseminated out into a broader populace by the use of videos such as Katherine's and mine and Stephen Shellen's and Victoria's Libertas and Richie Allen, interviewing various people, including Katherine. He's interviewed you, right, Katherine? And Dr. Karlstrom. So if that is the case, if the information about targeting is suddenly posing a threat to these powers that be, you know, the guys who are the criminals in high places, the guys who are occupying high places in our agencies and in the government, and who are working together with places like Google and YouTube, you know, and engaging in this mass censorship campaign. If the information about targeting is representing a threat, then what does that imply? What is the significance of that? And I think part of the implication is they want to keep this very quiet. They do not want information about targeting to go out. They want to keep using these covert weapons very, very covert. I'm sorry, I know you guys have asked to that too, so I won't hog all the speaking space. So go ahead and jump in. What do you think is the implication if you know, targeting is being kept quiet?
Well, I think Hayden's reaction was probably panic because all he said was nope, and he didn't want to address it any further because he hadn't anticipated ever being asked about it. I mean, he was, like I said, he was the head of NSA, he was the head of CIA, and now he works for the Chertoff group in Washington, D.C., Chertoff. So he's making, you know, millions, I'm sure, off of his previous experience, but they're seeing cracks in the wall that they didn't anticipate. So I'm in full agreement. They're trying to squelch this before it pops out, but it's like putting a finger in the dike. It's going to come out. The dike is going to break, and it doesn't matter how many of their little fingers that they stick in. They've targeted too many people, and they didn't anticipate that technology like this, you know, like this broadcast or Facebook or any of these other things would be used to unite their victims. And again, you can call only so many people delusional, but they're fighting an uphill battle to do it. You have to convince really stupid people that, 500,000 people or more are all delusional? Okay, but they all have the very same delusion that white, black, Hispanic, Indian, any type of immigrant to the United States, plus maybe people in Indonesia or South Africa or Russia, they're all delusional. They're all having the very same delusion. But first of all, you don't become paranoid and schizophrenic at 40, 50, or 60. You have to have some type of predilection to it that shows up when you are in your late teens or early 20s. So bingo, that is absolutely void when they're targeting the older women and saying, "Oh, you just became paranoid delusional at 55." No, she didn't, you know. And you look back and you see no mental health record whatsoever. No, she didn't. So any psychologist who tries to push that is delusional because it's not medically sound. So I'm sorry, but the dam's going to burst. And they're trying all kinds of very desperate things. And I even saw after the Cuba report, several Cuba reports, they finally fooled some idiot into saying, oh, this may be mass delusion. And then that story popped up, was pathetically received, and then it disappeared. So that got no traction whatsoever. That didn't work at all. And this new false flag in Florida, the shooting to try to get everybody's guns because of madmen everywhere, that fell apart a lot faster than they anticipated. You know, so like I said, this whole thing is falling apart, and they are going to be saying desperate things and maybe doing some stupid and desperate things that I hope actually exacerbates and quickens their fall. You know, I can't wait for the paddy wagons to come to the neighborhoods and pick up all these dirt bags. You know, after the top ones are picked up, I'm sure. But like I said, you're going to be seeing probably even more erratic behavior and stupid excuses. You know, directed energy weapons. General Hayden, what do you have to say? Unicorns. It's those damn unicorns. So yeah, they're going to get more and more pathetic, I think, as time goes on. But we're pushing on.
Oh, Karen, I think, oh gosh, Karen, you got this wrong. It's not the unicorns. They already made public announcements. It's the aliens, Karen. It's the aliens. They literally developed scores of alternative media channels just to tell us it's the aliens. It's not them. Not by any chance, Michael Hayden and General Watson and General or Admiral, God, forgot the name.
Rogers,
thank you. Right. And it's not them having, sex parties at NSA and then, giving out security codes to all and sundry. Oh, no, it wasn't them. It's the aliens, right? Who right now, when these people are behaving like a bunch of, juvenile shitheads, that's exactly when the aliens want to conquer the earth. Right. Yeah, let's move with that one.
So I guess this is why Hayden speaks with a forked tongue.
Well, we heard what Mitch Mattis told us, that her former husband had a forked tongue. And the only thing I want to is that the only thing that's forked with these guys? I mean, heck knows,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that actually sort of throws it in their court and takes us right to the military-industrial complex and to the electronic warfare industry, because I think that's what we have to deal with right now. We have this huge electronic weapons industry, which has also created ties with the Department of Justice, because the Department of Justice is now using non-lethal weapons that they will not divulge, that are being kept classified. And so this is the documentation that Dr. Nick Begich gave to us. So they have classified non-lethal weapons they are using on the populace that they will not divulge information about. That, of course, everyone who is targeted can testify to. We can certainly divulge a lot of information about this classified weaponry because we are experiencing its assault on our bodies, and on our brains. But you have, I think, this huge weaponry, this cache of weaponry that they are not at all interested in giving up even slightly. You see, they don't want any aspersions cast on their ghastly weaponry that they've developed. If you look actually at the history of, and again, this I'm sure has to do with mainstream media and what they've been doing to cover up this development of these weapons, across the decades. Our mainstream media has been focusing on nuclear weapons still. Way past the development of nuclear weapons as being the most powerful weapons. And then, so that becomes an issue in international treaties and conventions. And you get all this news about, this country doesn't want to sign the treaty, and that country is going to use nuclear weapons. And this, Iran has weapons, and Israel is so concerned about Iran, whereas Israel has its own nuclear weapons. And then you have, North Korea having weapons and all the stuff about nuclear weapons, nuclear weapons, nuclear weapons, So the whole emphasis has been taken away from the actual development of the most deadly tech on the face of the planet, which is neurotechnology, actual directed energy weapons that can affect the brain, that can affect the human nervous system, and can assault the human body at a very, very intimate level, at a cellular level, at a nerve level, at a bone and DNA level. So this has been very much hidden, I think, by media emphasis. So we're now here in this time period, and you've got these guys, slamming down on channels that are exposing targeting. So it seems to me one of the implications there is they are desperate to protect their industry. They are desperate to protect their multi-billion-dollar electronic warfare industry and neurotechnology industry. By the way, neurotechnology is becoming very mainstream through certain channels, through neurology and through psychiatry, neuropsychiatry, etc. We're seeing all sorts of things like Neuralink and Holosonic and things like that coming out, right, commercially speaking. And TMS, things like transcranial magnetic stimulation, is now being used by certain psychiatrists in hospitals. So they are trying to protect their industry so that they can make maximum profit from it in every which way and continue to assault, try out their weaponry on people like us, whom they choose to name targeted, whom they happily throw under the surveillance bill because it suits their purposes. They can then traffic these people for human experimentation without consent, right? And meanwhile, they are protecting this massive, massive industry, and they're protecting their own wealth, and they're protecting their own profits. So this is why I think they're getting really crazy and getting really desperate, as Karen said, and trying desperately to, shut down channels all over the place.
I agree. And the one thing I would like to say to that is that as we are moving, we are now entirely focused on on basically the weapon. Oh, can you hear me, Karen?
Yes. Yeah, you sounded like you're underwater for the first few seconds of what you said.
Okay. Is this better now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think they're trying to sabotage me. Anyway, so I think, sorry, what was I about to say? Yes. We are entirely focused on the weapons and the attacks on the civilian population with the directed energy weapons. Well, this is part of, as we discussed, Agenda 21, the Holocaust program, depopulation program, but it's also about weakening these countries, especially the Western countries. But one of the things that we talk rarely about is why is this being done? Because there are bigger processes happening that are in the financial realm. And the biggest process right now, and that's why these people are getting so desperate, is the winding down of the banking cartel. So Karen Huders has the inside info on that, and she's talking about how the fiat currencies are to be replaced by actually gold-backed currencies, how basically the loot of the mafia, this organized crime cartel, has been put into a trust, the ownership of which expired in 2006, and since then the gold belongs to humanity and is being managed by the board of directors of the World Bank. So we have ownership of a huge gold stash, and it's now an actual warfare battle against the biggest organized crime cartel that has infiltrated all the governments. What we really have to do is replace the currencies, because there are different guns that the organized crime cartel is holding to the heads of the states and to the judiciary and to absolutely everybody, to entire nations. One of these guns is the directed energy weapon system, this AI-enabled, fully integrated, yada, yada, yada system that we talk about all the time, which in the end will kill you, at the speed of light with an electromagnetic pulse. That's one gun. But there are several guns pointed at countries at the moment. Another gun that nobody actually talks about is what I term a Kowalski trigger, or dead man switch. So the banking cartel, the organized crime cartel, as far as I can make out, has set up a dead man switch for their own protection. And that's in the financial system. So right now, I would say, based on what I can see, and please insiders, come forward and back me up on this, if it's true, which I think it is, it must be. right now the entire stock market and the value of currencies and the value of any product or any commodity is entirely set by computer algorithms. So the banking cartel has critical mass. They can basically do trades amongst themselves and set any price to be wherever the hell they want. And what you see to be a stock market development is entirely simulated. It is entirely artificial because the volume of trades, for example, I think the currency trades per day are I think 100 times the world GDP, so world GDP. So they are ludicrous. I think you have to go to Zero Hedge to look up the exact number, but it's a ludicrous multiple. So if, world GDP can't quite cover the currency trades per day, who the F is currency trading? It's computer algorithms, it's banks. We know that all the banks are the same bank. It's only the one bank we have. All the central banks are part of the one bank. All the private banks are owned by the one bank. We have one bank in the world, okay, guys? And this one bank is making trades between its branches, right? That's what it does. And the volume, I mean, you can do this all day long, given that you're selling to yourself. You're not losing any money, right? So given that that's what's happening, that is determining prices. But when you have set up this hugely complex architecture of computer algorithms and computer systems that are simulating every stock market anywhere in the world, the thing is, if something happens to you and you stop doing that, you will have mayhem around the world because we don't even know what the value of our currencies are, because we never actually had an independent, assessment of the value of a currency for decades. So, okay, so the way, I don't know how to explain this, but it's like if you have, something, you're kind of like balancing something. This is a torch here I have to keep in my bunker. But you basically, put something like this, okay? This is the stock market, the red thing, and this is your computer system, and you're kind of balancing it, and you've got these softwares continually holding this. Should you ever stop doing the software corrections, this entire thing will fall down, okay? So as far as I can see, another gun that the banksters have against our heads is they say, if you arrest us, we're the only people who really are clued in how this entire system hangs together. Your stock markets will go and your currency values will go all over the shop until you figure out what the hell's going on in the world. And good luck, because in the meantime, we're going to shoot at you with the directed energy weapon system, and there will be mayhem and people will start killing each other because Walmart will be empty after 3 days. Okay, so that's the real situation we're in now. So now the banking cartel, having set this up, thinks, okay, we control the monetary system, we control the directed energy weapon system, we can now lean back, just press a button, and literally sadistically enjoy how we are murdering every single prodigy, every single intelligent or clued in person of integrity in all the nations around the world until there's no one left to either be smart enough or be clued in enough or be honest enough to help humanity guide through this. Okay, so that's the truth. That's what's actually going on. So now, the reason why I think why we're seeing this heating up is because they want to stage the big world war with Russia and China. And meanwhile, what we are trying to do is replace the currencies to actually, put them out of business once and for all. And of course, the organized crime cartel doesn't like being shut down after millennia of having ruled over us. But I think this is a super dangerous time. And this is why I really want to, in 2018, get people to move off their rear sides and start, we need to grow up and take absolutely everything super seriously. When we have journalists who are openly putting in writing that they're colluding with the crime cartel, we need to remove them as soon as possible because their job needs to be taken by an honest journalist. We need the journalists to continue reporting what's going on truthfully as we're going through the currency reset, as we're dismantling this. And this is national security. So actually, we have to put this guy McFate into jail, and I think we should put Luke Harding and Glenn Greenwald into jail for having refused to report about the Holocaust, and the heads of Private Eye in London. They need to go to jail so that we can have honest journalists report about this.
I agree, Katherine. Absolutely. Not just those writers, but their editors. the editors of the New York Times and the editors of the Guardian and the editors of the Daily Beast and the writer, who did those smear articles on people like Cheryl Welsh, Timothy Trespass, various people who've been interviewed, Dr. John Hall, etc., who are presenting the actual information about the Holocaust and who are being smeared and named delusional and part of a mass delusion. What they're doing is really they're engaging in a mass, not just propaganda campaign and mass defamation and smear campaign. It's a mass cover-up. It's a mass cover-up for the average person in the populace. So it serves to keep the general citizen, it's part of the Mind Watch Brigade, right? It serves to keep the general citizen completely in the dark as to the truth of what is going on, because it starts quoting psychiatrists. And by the way, you mentioned psychiatry earlier, and I think it's very, very important because we have the clear collusion of psychiatry in this cover-up that's very, very needed to be exposed. We need to expose that, because along with media, what guys like McFate and Luke Harding are doing, we have the psychiatrists, who have been interviewed in the Vice documentary, who've been, both Vice documentaries, I should say. There's another one made by an American, right? And then also those articles. All of the psychiatrists and sociologists who were cited and quoted and present information trying to project that people who believe that they are stalked are paranoid, and people who believe that they are being hit with directed energy weapons are paranoid, instead of simply beginning to report very openly and blankly that people are actually reporting being hit with electromagnetic signals on their body, which can be measured objectively. That's a huge difference. There should be no intervention of psychiatry in such a report. That's actually a report of physical signals, right? So.
Absolutely. I mean, they roll out psychiatry because, and sorry, I will be super arrogant saying this now, but psychiatry is, I think, the least clued in field of, science. It's not science, it's a pseudoscience. It's waffle. It's pure waffle. If it weren't waffle, they would have cottoned onto this a long time ago. But the truth is, they just can't even do simple statistics to save their lives, let alone, know about this sort of technology. I mean, this is engineering and physics, and they have let us down. And I think psychiatry has been discredited for good. And besides, I think we should go back as we're going through the victim reports and actually look at past psychiatric and even neurological conditions, and actually consider if this was maybe damage from nanotechnology all along, and maybe it was actual, people being hooked up to brain-computer interfaces all along, And there's, for example, one thing that kind of raised an eyebrow with me. It's I want to put it in before I forget. So please, investigators in the medical and biomedical field, get on the case, if you think this is something to follow up. But there was something that was popularized in a Hollywood movie with Robin Williams, which was this locked-in syndrome. And the actor played this psychiatrist who was treating patients who had locked-in syndrome. These are people who are, completely neurologically locked in. They're otherwise healthy, but they can't act anymore. So anyway, the more I see, so they have one of these. Oh yes, I wanted to show you that video because Facebook has brought out a new video where they have somebody with locked-in syndrome. And what this is, yes, it is. Okay. So it's about hands-free typing, Facebook's brain-to-text initiative. This, ladies and gentlemen, is something to look into. I tweeted this out. So here, there's a little, jolly presentation. Listen to this.
What if you could type directly from your brain? It sounds impossible, but it's closer than you may realize. The woman in this video has ALS. She is completely trapped inside her body. She cannot move or speak, but she is typing with her mind, not with eye blanks, with her mind. An array of electrodes the size of a pea has been implanted where her brain would normally control her motor functions. The electrodes record her neurons firing when she imagines moving the cursor. Then the computer learns to move it for her. Using this system, she can type 8 words per minute. So what if instead of using imagined arm movements, we could decode speech directly? Now, to be clear, we are not talking about decoding your random thoughts. That might be more than any of us care to know. A silent speech interface, one with all the speed and flexibility of voice, but with the privacy of typed text.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is an announcement from Facebook, and this, for everybody who has Voice to Skull and has non-stop commentary on their own silent speech, is very well known. And now Facebook has announced this initiative, the Facebook Brain to Text Initiative. Now, as an investigator, one that's looking into cartel signaling, I would like to flag a few things straight away. Note the leather jacket worn by this lady, which is kind of odd. It could be, I don't know, newest fashion, but just the leather jacket, does that ring a bell? And then please have a look at the number of pentagrams and pyramids and pentagrams and more pentagrams and cubes here in the background, right? And also diamonds. Okay, so the diamond is sometimes a reference to, you know, the crown jewels, as in the Crown Corporation. So you've got this odd pattern here in the background. And in my experience, every single one of these announcements is highly choreographed and means something. But you have Facebook announcing the technology that has been used for decades to abuse and torture and humiliate Voice to Skull victims. Now, this is an important video to note, but my point was that the lady who they are using is totally brushed over the fact she's got locked-in syndrome. What exactly is locked-in syndrome? Do we know? Because we have victim reports where they are locked in, as in paralyzed, by the brain-computer interface, you know? So is it maybe, which is something I really want people to look into, is locked-in syndrome maybe an artificial phenomenon that is the result of military experimentation, because you take a human being who's perfectly healthy so you can experiment on their full body, but you block their speech center and you block their ability to move. How hard is it? Not that hard, given that the intelligence agencies here have the perfect ability to open and close my hand. They also have the ability to prevent me from opening and closing my hand, right? They haven't stopped me from speaking yet, which is probably their mistake. You know, they said, gosh, they should have given her locked-in syndrome, not, you know, given her a YouTube account. But anyway.
Oh, please don't give them any ideas, please.
Well, you know, if I get locked-in syndrome, you know how to help me, right? Put me into a fire.
Yeah, I think so.
Oops, you got censored. You got censored, Ramona. What did you just say?
That was me. I mean, I'm sorry. I was playing with my mouse at the same time. Didn't realize I was doing that. No, that was great. Actually, that's right. Exactly. It's a very legitimate speculation to speculate whether these syndromes that are suddenly popping up out of the blue and that are actually projecting the brain as being unable to help the body, the brain suddenly being shut down in that fashion. It's legitimate at this point in time to speculate whether the military is doing that to people and then coming up with, you know, the solution. Because as you know, this is what they're doing to us. They are hitting us. They are hitting each one of us who's been thrown on these terrorist watch lists wrongfully and is being surveilled and targeted. They are hitting us constantly with stimuli. They are, in a sense, what they are doing is they are overpowering our brains and they are inducing PTSD, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder in all of us by hitting us variously, whether it's directed energy weapons that are directing directly, or you know, into the brain. People are getting V2K, etc. And then on the streets, we're being hit with such massive COINTELPRO. I get such incredible COINTELPRO. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, cutoffs all the time, etc., etc. So you're always in a state of, you know, high adrenaline, no doubt, you know, on the edge of your seat, trying to drive with care, while there's absolute mayhem, total public endangerment going on all around you. Hazardous driving all around you. So they're putting you in that state of extreme trauma constantly. And so you're in a state of PTSD. And I understand that the whole trauma-based mind control experimentation of the CIA, which has now been expanded and is now being run also by the Air Force, by the Navy, and by the DoD, is related to trauma, right? Traumatize the brain, traumatize the neural pathways, and then try to, shove stuff in with their neuro techniques of sending frequencies to your neural pathways. So because they're trying desperately to take over people's brains, they're trying desperately to pump information in and to modify your behavior, modify your thinking. But I really loved what Karen said before we started the show. If they're working on brain control or mind control with any of us, they're doing a really bad job. Because I don't think they're succeeding one little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Somebody said to me that regularly I get accused of being an agent, and they said, "Oh, you are probably an agent of I don't know what they did." The agency always changes: the CIA, MI6, German or Swiss Intel, Mossad. I don't know. I'm not an agent, and I can get that in writing. But anyway, one of the things that really amused me is I said, "Well, if I were an agent of any of these agencies, I mean, would they really hire somebody, their own agent, and pay them to take them to court for crimes against humanity? I mean, that would not really work. It's like, please bring down our systems, try to create as much publicity and every week put out that our funding should be cut to zero and we should be dismantled,
And every week, sort of deprecate and point to who's doing it and name them and shame them. Yeah, that's a little hard to believe that each one of us is an agent, right? Although I've had the same kind of aspersion cast my way as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, we just have to move forward in court cases. I mean, we just care about shutting this stuff down. But actually talking about naming names, I did want to name some names today. And if I may, I actually wanted to do this straight at the beginning, but we got a bit sidetracked. And I didn't. I just let my mind wander. What I actually wanted to announce, and that is super important. If I may just share my screen briefly. Okay, so basically, number one thing that I wanted to announce, if I may share. So as most of you have heard, as most of you have heard, this is my website, Stop 007. Please go there, stop007.org. As most of you have heard, our founder of Techno Crime Fighters Forum, Dr. Paul Marco, has passed away. I have posted an obituary in his honor here on the website for Techno Forum. And because today is the 50th episode, I think, we have to remember that it's entirely thanks to Paul Marco and Mindy Erkin that we even got this far. If it hadn't been for these two people, I don't think we would have gotten together. I don't think that the joint investigation team would have been founded. And they basically pulled us out of the ashes and created these things. So I am deeply grateful for them. And this is the image how I'm always going to remember, Paul Marco, because he always had an incredibly insightful, erudite comment. And then there's Mindy behind him, lovingly supporting him and, taking care that the tech is up to speed and everything. So I ask you to please read the obituary and also, send your love to Mindy. And also I put in the obituary, I put the links to the wonderful work that the two of them have done. I want to remind everybody that they have done pioneering work in actually bringing the world's attention to the satanic ritual sacrifice of young children in the UK, known as the Hampstead cover-up. And if you click on the links, there will be an entire playlist. And then, most importantly, they also publicized the covert sale advertisement of young children at the Super Bowl in the adverts. And actually, that video that they did was taken off YouTube and entirely censored. And I think they got a strike for that. And I remember Paul talking about it. However, if you click on this link, I managed to find a backup copy that somebody did here. And this is actually the Pinecone Utopia video by Paul Marco. And this is 5 minutes that you have to invest. It's called Super Bowl Audio Commercial, Pizzagate and the Hampstead Cover-Up. And basically what this is about is that the children who were whistleblowers, I mean, first of all, it's about the children here. I think this is the, which false flag was this, Sandy Hook or whichever one. Yes, the Sandy Hook children turned up at the Super Bowl singing. These are the children who are meant to have died, but they are singing beautifully at the Super Bowl, right? And then later on, there's advertising where the people in the advertising, the children in the advertising are actually the whistleblowing children, and they are later on, you know, recognized here in the ads as the two children. And this is a very sophisticated advert that was played at the Super Bowl. And I think, you know, we have to assume the worst. We have to assume that as punishment for their whistleblowing, these children were sold at the Super Bowl because they were taken away from the mother. And I think the father was involved in a sadistic, satanic child sacrifice ring in the UK. So the fact that the police is not investigating and we have to do it tells you a lot. But please, please go to this website. Please, you know, click on the link and please make a backup of this video. This, you know, basically, Paul Marco has given everything to bring you this information, and this is important for the ongoing investigations. You can just Google on or search online how to download YouTube videos. You know, there's different software we can use, but you just copy and paste the link, and you paste it into you know, a URL. The URL field, and then you can download the video. So please download it and please upload it to your channel. You know, it was taken down from Pinecone Utopia, so please spread it around the internet, because this is indicating crimes against humanity, and the organizers of the Super Bowl and the people who made this advert being involved. So Audi is involved, okay? So you have CEOs already connected to that. So please, this is absolutely serious, and also listen to all the other videos that I've linked here, because the information that Paul is giving you there might save your life and might save humanity. So please take it seriously. The other urgent call is for Dr. Millicent Black. So here, if you go to the second link, Dr. Millicent Black and I did a video last night, and this is called the Urgent Appeal for Dr. Millicent Black. Please listen to the appeal. She's also talking inside. I'm not sure if I can show you. I can't actually show you ahead. Oh, yes, I can. So she is showing her evidence. She's showing her body implants. Now, this sort of image is relevant for everybody else who is implanted. You know, you can compare where your chips are located in your body. But Millicent has 53 bio implants. This is the highest number ever recorded by the person who did the scan. And she also shows, you know, I think there's also, yes, here the X-ray of absolutely brutal damage here. And you can actually take a screenshot and use this image. I will also upload it to her site. This is an X-ray of her knee, and this gap between the prosthetic protection here and the actual bone is the size of bone that was shot out with the pulsed energy projectiles, so with directed energy weapons. And you can see that the bone is massively damaged up here as well. So this gap here is the bone that was shot to pieces by directed energy weapons. You can quote that in court if you are suffering from this type of these type of attacks. And then finally, also further on in the interview, she's talking about let me just show you, because it's important, because we talked about Mount Pleasant School, and she pointed to the Air Force, what's it called, medal on Randall Webster. That's the psychopathic serial killer, in our view, who's tormenting her. He has a medal from the Air Force, and the medal is exactly like the awning here in front of Mount Pleasant School, okay? But Millicent was pointing out that Randall Webster confessed to her over voice to skull repeatedly that he's mind controlling and radio hypnotizing children at Mount Pleasant School, and he is using them to be abused. Okay, and then the school got an awning which has an Air Force, style awning, and on top of that crosses that look like a military grave. So it's almost like this is cartel signaling, saying here the children are basically was put into a program. I mean, Millicent said the parents need to know that their children at Mount Pleasant School might have been put onto a terminal program. A terminal program being the end of the program is the death of the child. Okay, so please, this has to be taken seriously. This is extremely important information. And when you know the crime cartel, you know that symbolism, just like this one, actually means something. They do put their program out in your face, you know, and then laugh at you if you're not able to actually perceive it. But I want to ask absolutely everybody to please go to Millicent's site, scroll down, listen to the interview, look at her evidence. I will post her evidence on the website itself in a bit, but then please write to these officials. I have now updated the official list, and I've put in photographs of all the people here. And we ask you, in the name of the joint investigation team, to help us save the life of our colleague. She is now in recovery after major surgery, and she is being attacked in the recovery center where she is. I talked to her, and she's really horrifically being tortured, and her recovery is being hampered. Now, this is the job of Chief Tim Potts of Columbia Police, who has refused for several years to help Millicent, even though he receives daily reports of her mutilation and her abuse. Troy Potts is the captain of investigations in Columbia. It's also his job. I spoke to him, and I also spoke to Chief Potts. I also spoke to the FBI in Memphis and Nashville. I should put in the heads of that here into this list as well. But please write to Tony Massey, the city manager in Columbia, Krista Martin, the vice mayor, Bill Haslam, the governor, and then also Diane Black, please, the governor-elect, and Brian Kelsey. He's the senator and chairman of the judiciary of the state of Tennessee. Please write to all of them. Oh, yes, and also Herbert Slattery, who's the attorney general in Tennessee. It is entirely the statutory duty of these people to stop crimes against humanity. And if they do not, these faces will be up in court. And I shall not rest until I actually see them in court. Because if they're not acting, they are actively aiding and abetting crimes against humanity. So I just want to, say that. And also the third thing, last time I asked people to join the campaign for Siegfried Thomas, and then the actual court details were deleted from my computer. So I didn't have time to upload it. I only noticed now. But this link will be updated soon. It should have been last week, but it hasn't been yet, because I'm really, really struggling with the workload I have and with the attacks. But this is absolutely serious. In the name of our colleague, Dr. Millicent Black, I ask absolutely everybody who's taking part in the chat, who's watching us live, to please put pen to paper and write to these people and make a backup copy of your letter. This is absolutely serious. The injuries that she sustained just in the hospital, and also the behavior of hospital staff, tells me that they are intending of, potentially murdering Millicent in this recovery center. And specifically, for example, she was given a document by a nurse to sign that was some sort of, giving the hospital permission or, something. And then Millicent noticed that the nurse had signed the paper for her, and the block that she ticked was "do not resuscitate." So Millicent refused to sign this paper. So as of today, Millicent has never signed a "do not resuscitate." And I want everybody to know that, okay? She confirms it in her own voice on this video. And I want this recovery center also to know that any other irregularity, and they will be up in court as well, So this is just the scale of this insanity. But Millicent is very uncomfortable in this center. She is being neglected. Also, when she got there, a man told her, "We will pick on you." And Millicent had to defend herself and said, "Listen, I'm not, somebody easily picked on." And that's right. Millicent is not somebody easily picked on. And she's got friends who are very, very determined. So, this is a word of warning to absolutely everybody in Columbia who is involved in Millicent's case. I'm pretty sure this message is going to reach them. And I'm telling them that they have to tread extremely carefully now. Really carefully.
And, it's absolutely shocking that somebody would actually say that to her as soon as she steps into the hospital, that a man would say, we're here to pick on you. I mean, give me a break. What on earth, This is absolute discrimination, absolute open larceny and crime in your face.
It is, but then again, we are in a situation where the FBI is basically the mob, as far as I can make out. So, we are dealing with the mob, and these stupid mobsters are absolutely everywhere, and they've hired every last moron in town, and, but it's extremely dangerous. I am extremely concerned for the welfare of Millicent, and most shockingly, she had major surgery, and Randall Webster continues to use Air Force technology to communicate with her ear chips and continue to send her death threats, to tell her exactly what he's going to do, and then to proceed to actually mutilate her body in exactly the way he announced, right? So already in the surgery, two things came up. Number one is that the surgeon said that the surgeon was amazed because Millicent's bones were mushy, as he said. Okay. And Millicent asked, could this be a result of the radiation and the chip torture? And he said, yes. So that's another confirmation. She says that in her own words as a witness. Okay. So you can use that in court. If your bones are being shot at with directed energy weapons, this is what's going to happen to your bones, people. They're trying to shoot our bones to mush, basically. Okay. And this brings me to another thing. Do you remember people who have this weird and very rare condition where people have so-called glass bones, their bones shatter? Could it be that as a child, they're being worked with directed energy weapons to make their bones fragile, and maybe it's combined with nanotechnology? I think it's something we should look into, And I'm trying to write this is one of my projects, writing an entire list of diseases and illnesses that are massively on the rise, including Alzheimer's, including Parkinson's, including autism, and other things like diabetes. And we really have to ask ourselves, is this maybe the result of directed energy weapons and nanotechnology? This is maybe nanotechnology damage to the brain and actually directed energy weapon technology to the brain. But all of this needs to be considered. I mean, it's easy to cause diabetes when you are basically using directed energy weapons to burn out the cells that produce insulin. Okay, that if you do that, you can make tons of bucks for the pharma industry, because people will be insulin dependent for the rest of their lives. Okay. Mm-hmm. So big bucks.
And actually, Katherine, if you're looking into that, look into Tony Pantalleresco's site and Suzanne Marr's website. They have a ton of information on the effects of the nanotech from the chemtrails, and all of the different kinds of particulates that are raining down on us. The rise of Alzheimer's, the rise of autism, examining all of that. So there are a few researchers out there who are also collecting information on these subjects in particular, particularly in relation to nanotech. So I think that's, worth examining and pulling into our own body of understanding here, to also examine how directed energy weapons are being used. One thing that struck me about what you were talking about with Millicent's case is the school building, as you showed, that ridiculous, facade, the awning, that clearly looks like part of that eagle logo that shows up on all of the agency logos and shows up on the Air Force, but with the crosses, sort of the Arlington Cemetery look with the rows of crosses, and the implication that you suggested that these kids are in some kind of terminal program. Yeah. Very, very interesting, because they're also in a STEM program. And the thought crosses my mind, the STEM program is now like all across the country. It's in my daughter's school as well. My daughter is for the first time in a public school. And so she's very interested in these STEM projects, basically because they're presented as science projects to the kids. All right. And I suspect that the entire public school system is actually part of a mass mind wash program that's being conducted very insidiously and surreptitiously. But it would be useful for us, I think, to explore that and figure out how they're doing it, because they're doing it with things like fluorescent lights everywhere. Even the lamps that are sold now for kids, I think my daughter has one. I've got to investigate this because her dad got her this, is a fluorescent lamp, And Barry Trower has talked about how it is possible to send frequencies in through the fluorescent lamps.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So that is, that's how mass mind control is being executed on the populace, through street lights, through train lights. I've been on the train quite a bit lately because I went down to Washington, D.C. I took the metro everywhere. And they have got some really bright white lights everywhere now. I mean, I used to live in the DC area, but they didn't have such bright lights everywhere, you know? So I don't know what they are. I don't know if these are fluorescent lights, but they're super bright. They're like those mercury lamps that you see on some cars,
Actually,
the headlight.
this is so important you mentioned it. Sorry to slide in.
Go ahead.
People in Europe, I want to flag up that in Europe, and this is the cartel, okay? So now we all understand this is the cartel's doing. In Europe, incandescent light bulbs were banned by the European Union, okay? The European Union being the one with the 12 satanic stars, okay? So they have banned incandescent lights. So you can, I think it's still legal to own them. I'm not sure for how much longer, but you'd have to get them off specialist sites, you know, of Timbuktu or something, and order them over the internet. They're not allowed to be sold or be manufactured here in Europe any longer. So the fact that they so swiftly got rid of incandescent light bulbs, to me, is a red flag. I think you're absolutely right. We already have a patent about how, for example, computer monitors can be used to, you know, do mind control.
Yes.
And other technology and devices around that, you know. So I was just sent over Twitter, you know, the another link, another patent to how devices can be used to control us. So that is right to the core. The other thing I wanted to say about street lamps, I am pretty sure with these, you know, with these modern lamps that you can do certain frequencies. The second thing is these lamps will also contain the 5G emitters. Okay, so 5G, for those people who don't know, sorry, I'm just getting echoed. Sorry, just 2 sentences and I'll shut up at last. So the 5G, we haven't talked much about 5G, but the difference, so as I understand it at this moment, 3G and 4G are basically radiating out, you know, stuff. But now 5G is fundamentally different from 3 and 4G. It's not just an upgrade, it's a fundamentally different system. 5G, I think, is using very specific cones. It's targeting the actual device, very highly focused, but the range is also much shorter. So instead of just having, you know, cell phone towers every 100 meters, you will have cell phone towers every 30 feet. Okay, the entire country will be absolutely, you know, hiving with, you know, I'm using the word hiving here on purpose, with 5G emitters. They are very, I think, very small, and they can be hidden absolutely everywhere. So councils have been known to put them up in trees, in vegetation and hedges, in street lamps, all right, behind street signs, and absolutely everywhere. And the idea is you're never further away from one of these 5G emitters. Now, I downloaded a really long document on 5G from the German arms manufacturer called Rohde and Schwarz. And they put up a presentation. I just have to dig it out. It's one of these things that disappeared off my computer, I think. But I will dig it out. And there they have actually, it's a technical presentation for people who are putting 5G into place. And the biggest difference, I think, is this conical focus. Okay, it's high intensity focus at something. If you want to shoot somebody with it, it's perfect. And we already know that you know, most of the antennas, the mobile phone antennas, the cell phone antennas we have in our cell phones, they are capable of power much above than what it's actually, you know, being licensed for. So in other words, they are putting these cell towers absolutely everywhere. And this has to be investigated, but I put my money down now, okay, $50, I'll bet on the fact that you can use this to fire such an intense pulse, if you really max out the capabilities of these antennas, to really hurt somebody physically, I think. And I think so. I think it was it Dr. Murray who reported being attacked by street lights or something like that? Somebody high profile reported it. And that's why I investigated 5G. And yes, it's true, you know, but the 5G technology, you have to understand, is fundamentally different. It's not just 3 and 4G, just more of it or bigger or better. No, it's a fundamentally different technology. And this means that I personally think what this is a massive decentralized weapons system. You know, I think this is what it is.
I think so, yes. And, you know, isn't it also pulsed microwave as opposed to continuous microwaves?
Exactly, yes.
Right?
And not
it's
just
like a smart meter, continuous pulse.
Yeah.
And in a cone, very, very kind of attenuated and focused. So, there's another thing, the SpaceX satellites, Mr. What's his name, Elon Musk and his pals are setting up in space. Supposedly there's a connection there with 5G as well, because the plan is to put a whole bunch of tiny little nano 5G satellites in space to pretty much irradiate every little corner of the Earth. So that's another big issue as well, And I think there are, in parts of the country, small groups are working to raise awareness about 5G and trying to get people to speak out against it. But it's a very small effort, I think, in comparison to the actual rollout that we hear so much about. But I think it's still very important, Katherine, for people to investigate 5G and speak out against it, because I don't think the average person on the street knows what 5G is about. They just think it's the next best thing, People are so used now to seeing the next best thing, the next iteration of the cell phone software or whatever, that they don't give 5G a thought. So I think there is a great need still to educate people about 5G and how ghastly it is, how ghastly it might be if it is completely rolled out. I still think it's very important for us to step forward and try to stop it being rolled out.
We absolutely must, because first of all, 5G is not just it's a national health catastrophe. It is a health catastrophe for ecosystems, because basically any bird and bug and absolutely everything that's, damaged by this stuff absolutely irreparably. But thirdly, it's not just so it's a human public health disaster. It's an ecological disaster, and it's a national security issue. Okay, these are the three things. And yes, 5G has to go. I mean, frankly, what I'm doing, I just bought myself 15-meter worth long Ethernet cables, and I've just ordered a telephone with a cable. And I'm getting rid of my cordless telephone, and I'm getting rid of Wi-Fi, and I'm literally trying to, get rid of this, because this stuff is dangerous. And I encourage wholeheartedly everybody to do the same thing. Really, go back to cord phones. Dr. Barry Trower has a cord phone, and he knows his shit, okay? So ask yourself why Dr. Barry Trower doesn't use a cordless phone, seriously. So anyway, so the other thing I wanted to say very urgently is I did find this Roda and Schwartz presentation for the technical people out there, and also for the non-technical people out there. Please go and have a look at this, it's called The Road to 5G, LTEA Evolution, Internet of Things, very important, and First 5G Aspects by Rainer Stuhlfaut. Okay, so he's working for Roda and Schwartz. Okay, he's the technology marketing manager. So this is the schedule for 5G, and we're now in 2018. So this is release 15, okay? So here, 5G work, phase 1, we are right in it. And then, oh, look. Oh, hang on. I've never even seen that before consciously. Look, there is a satanic star here in red. So these are the pentagrams. And 2020, there will be some sort of MIT 2020 submission. So that's some Tokyo big, I don't know, get-together conference thing that looks weird. So anyway, watch the satanic pentagrams. They do mean stuff. And if anybody's clued in, it will be Roda and Schwartz. And there's a lot of technical detail here. And it's about system efficiency. And this image is probably too small, but you will see now these cones, okay, these lobes. And the point is they seem to be using phase arrays. And now they can send out these conical, very highly focused targeting, targeting the cell phones in a very highly focused manner, okay? So then also they're working on mesh networks here, multi-hop and device-to-device, okay? Now this is a cybersecurity nightmare. Okay, and there's lots and lots of absolute, really detailed stuff. There was one sort of image that really freaked me out. I'm just gonna race through this, so apologies. Please look up this presentation. I will also put it up online in the public interest. Oh yes, and also, so this is, I think this is the signal shape. So very, very focused signals. Yes, this is what I wanted to say. So more and more you will see these kind of conical shadows when people are talking about cell phones, and these lobes are focused, okay? This is now focused radiation at your device or focused pulse at your device. Okay, so this is what's fundamentally new, and there's lots and lots of other stuff. So this, I think, the presentation in total. Oh, hang on, was it here? Yeah. So there's some symbolism in this presentation that kind of scared me a bit. But it's a presentation of 161 pages. So this is as technical as it can get. And it should give you the full Monty on 5G. But I'm inviting everybody who is technically skilled, who's watching this, to please have a look at this documentation. Okay, we are giving you leads, and you have to help us investigate, because you can't expect all the Holocaust victims to do everything for you. Okay, so please, get on the case.
Yeah, I think I'll cover 5G in a Need to Know shortly, Katherine, because it's definitely something to cover. And there are actually many people to interview on the subject. I'll try to do that, because there are activists working to stop 5G, and I really would like to have their voices out there, and have people hear them. It's so important, because people don't really know, and it's important for people to know. To go back a little bit to what you were talking about earlier with the schools, and the fact that the fluorescent lights, the screens, the monitors, all of these are methodologies of mind control. I suspect what's happening is, our children are being mind controlled in schools, within the school system, and of course at home, because everybody has a little device, everyone's watching TV at some point, etc. So there's this mass control system being rolled out on the next generation, through technology. And then there's your generation, Katherine. I know you're a bit younger than we are here, and my generation, we're the 30s, 40s, 50s crowd, the 60s crowd. We're being phased out, really, with directed energy weapons attacks. And this is what's going on. You hear suddenly of people in their 50s getting strange diseases and dying. Sudden heart attacks, sudden strokes. Haven't we all heard stories of sudden deaths at this point? And people don't really know why. But I think you and I know why, because we know the directed energy weapons are being used. And this actually goes back to how we started the show today, where we were talking about Michael Hayden, General Michael Hayden, saying, no, I don't know anything about, directed energy weapons. But in actuality, we have a whole system that's been set up, including using things like parked cars to direct energy at us. Literally on the side streets where I live, I see a whole bunch of parked cars. I see trucks, with closed back stops, whatever they are, the back area of the truck covered up. So clearly there's something inside, and I can feel directed energy from that direction coming up at me. So this is a system. When they have a system where they've used the utilities, they've got people like Comcast, National Grid, Verizon, hiding things in their trucks, hiding directed energy weapons in their trucks. Hiding things like emitters, repeaters, microwave emitters and microwave repeaters in their trucks, here, there, and everywhere, stuck on lampposts. We're talking about covert operations. We're talking about mass surveillance, and we are talking about mass electromagnetic energy weapon assault. So when they have the system set up, this control grid set up, this is something they're not willing to give up very easily. And I think it might connect also, as you pointed out, Katherine, with the financial aspect of things. Because obviously there's a financial aspect to this. Once they have a system in place, it's also part of the financial system that's in place, right? So they don't want, that's become a way of life now. I think it's not just an industry, it's a way of life, and it's a financial system. So they don't want anybody to upset the apple cart here. They don't want anybody to tear it wide open and to cast aspersions and say these are crimes against humanity, which you and I are doing. The three of us are doing, right? So this is why I think this sort of comes back to the censorship. So it comes back to, this is why they're pulling out all this desperate censorship. And they are at the same time doing what Millicent has pointed us to. They are mind washing and radio hypnotizing the younger generation, the kids in schools, So they're taking us out at the same time as brainwashing the next generation. They're trying to lead to greater and greater control. It seems to be the scenario.
You are 100% correct. And actually, Millicent made a very good point. I mean, people should really please listen to Millicent. Actually, yesterday's audio recording was fantastic. Her mobile phone was not, for one, sabotaged, so you can actually hear Millicent throughout the entire interview, and I was so grateful for that, because she makes excellent points, you know. She pointed to, I mean, it's 2 o'clock, don't forget to bring your card. Sorry. So Millicent basically, sorry, oh my goodness, it is almost 3 o'clock. I've just realized, Ramola, you have to go. So, you know, the one thing is, so Millicent has said, so she has all the insider info because Randall Webster, Air Force veteran, keeps telling her, you know, what is going on and how the children are being abused. But also she figured out so much stuff, you know, by doing a top-notch investigation. And as you said, she discovered that NASA is involved in the Mount Pleasant School. There's the STEM program. And, you know, oh, by the way, the other thing, Dr. Barry Trow also talks about his insights about how as soon as they brought Wi-Fi to African schools, the kids started having behavioral problems, which the teachers have never, ever seen in their entire lives. Okay. So that could be, first of all, the radiation. But I rather think that just like in the West, the children have also gone through a program of being covertly implanted that has been now raging for decades. So it could be the implants in the children's heads in Africa now suddenly being hooked up to the BCIs through the Wi-Fi, and that's what's upsetting them, you know. So it could be stuff like that. But also, Millicent and I, we were talking about how when they are, so first of all, the other thing, Millicent yesterday also gave the reference to the researchers who actually pointed out that Ronald Reagan signed this this law, it was, I think, the 86 Immigration Control Act, which allowed every American to be chipped at birth. Okay, so emigration, because if you want to flee the country, you're chipped, so you can be hunted down. That's the point. Yesterday she gave the precise reference, but we were also talking about the fact that if the children are chipped at birth and they have all maybe the self-assembling nanotech put into it that then crosses the blood-brain barrier and makes little brain chips and so on and everything that's possible these days, if it's done to young children, they will grow up not knowing anything other, right? So right now I can feel that my entire head is completely lit up with microchips because my scalp is burning, I have this continuous pull, I've got a headache, and, you know, weird things are happening that I know I never had even a year ago, let alone 2 years ago, before they started targeting me. So I've got a reference. I can reference my life before this and then what started happening in January 2016. Now, a child that's growing up doesn't know what to expect in the world. So the babies their brains will first of all grow to accommodate the brain chips. And second of all, the kids' perception will take account of the chips as if it was a part of their own body, and the entire brain recalibrates, you know. So I
think that's a very important point. I'm so glad you spelled that out. That is exactly what they are looking to do. They are looking to completely take over the younger generation, implant babies at birth, completely take over their brains at birth. Their whole deal, even if you look into the history of MKUltra and look into what they've been trying to do with the DARPA experiments, you know, their whole deal is trying to take people over and make them believe that nobody from the outside is taking them over. You know, they're very interested in complete control, complete and absolute control. And this is outrageous because they are talking about complete and absolute brain control and complete and absolute body control.
It's true. And actually, another thing, I want to cram as much information into this, you know, into this episode, the 50th episode, which is why I'm jumping here and there, talking about absolute and total control in the information space. So yes, your brain controlling the people. You have all this entire architecture of the neurotech and using Wi-Fi and mobile phone systems to interface with the brain chips and nonstop. And then how do you control the information that's being put out there? And right now we are lucky because we can still broadcast, you know, to fairly high quality. By the way, ladies, I just would like to point out that Ramola's quality is top. We can actually see her, we can hear her. Before I tweeted out at the NSA and GCHQ and the CIA that I'm really fed up with their stupid sabotage, we couldn't hear her. And I think, every one of us had their own version of sabotage. So I think tweeting at them helps, Right.
Amazing, huh? Wow. They
Amazing.
actually respond.
Yeah, so I think from now on, we don't need tech support anymore. We just tweet at, NSA. Oi. Send someone over, will you?
A little help would be enough.
Exactly. But the one thing I wanted to say is, it's sabotage in the information domain, information warfare is now, as we pointed out, happening, but because the YouTube channels are being shut down, videos which actually reveal that the false flag people who are meant to be shot dead are actually smiling into a camera, and so on and so on. So all that is being deleted from YouTube now. So yesterday, by the way, sorry to plug this, but I think it's important. I wanted to draw people's attention to the fact that yesterday I had an interview with Alfred, which you can find on my channel. It's called System Judo, and we're starting a new series. If there's interest, about how to use System Judo in your everyday life, and there will be episode 2 will be released, tomorrow. So please have a look. But with Alfred, we talked about what to do, how to diversify. And one thing I floated was RooTube. This is YouTube in Russia. And if you, first of all, don't be scared by, the spelling here and the characters. If you're using Google Chrome, you can click up here, and then you can just say translate. And the Google Translate is amazing because it immediately shows everything in German or in English, whatever you like. But I ask you, if I think it's a good idea to upload and back up your videos here, but also be aware that RooTube is probably owned by the cartel just as much as YouTube is. And if you go to info and then terms of use, after you translated the website, you wait a second, and then this amazing good AI will actually flip this back into English. If you go down to the terms and conditions, number 514, I think it is, here, I want to draw your attention to something subtle, because it says the administration also has the right to replace or delete words and expressions that may be considered offensive or violate the rights of third parties, and also make other changes or additions to the materials and information solely for the purpose of bringing them in line with the current legislation of the Russian Federation. But the important thing is that they reserve the right to replace your words in your video and add other material.
Actually, I think they've done it on YouTube as well.
Yes.
Marie, whom I've interviewed, brought Alfred Weber and my attention actually to one of our podcasts where words were replaced to effect an absolute opposite meaning, by the way.
We have to take those
on YouTube
videos. Yeah. Please, if you have videos like that, please, send us the original version. Give us a link to the original version and the replaced version. Put the original up on Dropbox or some other platform. I think this is huge, because for that we can get them in court. This is actually falsifying information. But first when I saw it on RooTube, I thought, oh, the evil Russians. And I thought, hang on, no, we're fleeing from YouTube because they're shutting down entire channels, never mind replacing words. But I think we should go back and actually realize that RooTube and YouTube are probably owned by the same people. And now let's look for this clause in the YouTube terms and conditions, because you also have to be aware that the technology exists now to not just replace words live, but also to replace images live. And I think we saw an advert for this software that does that. So if a journalist is actually filming live from a war zone, the technology exists to make the explosions and dead bodies disappear in the image that actually gets transmitted, and all stuff reappear,
I think what Marie was calling our attention to is actually in the transcription, not in the spoken video itself, but in the transcription on the screen. Yeah.
That's the low-tech version, I'm almost disappointed that YouTube didn't do the full evil thing, of replacing the spoken word. Well, then again, probably their next upgrade. But that's incredible. But basically, we have to. I think what this the YouTube shutdown show us, that we have to diversify. This is a war, people, and yes, it will get worse because the current replacement will happen. And I think we should already now move such that we have diversified across countries, across platforms, and all our videos and broadcasts are already, backed up and being shipped to many, many platforms. So I ask every single person with the channel to please, look into diversification, look into other alternatives, not just RooTube and YouTube, which might be the same owner, and all those people who don't have YouTube channels yet, why don't you please get on? You don't have to put your own videos up. You can just put, link other informational videos, make playlists. They are very, very useful, actually. Have a playlist of the most informative information. Because if we don't use playlists that are actually made by real people who put some brain into this, we are entirely reliant of the suggestions that the AI gives us, on the sidebars. So this is really, really important. But anyway, sorry.
That's all right. Sorry. There's also DTube and there's BitChute that Crystal Starhart directed me to as being two other really possible, ways to put your videos out there. I think they're both free. Now, DTube, I think, is connected to Steemit. So Steemit sounds like a good platform. If you can get on it, I think you have to apply and then you have to wait 2 weeks. And basically you get paid for your posts. So you can make text posts and then you can, DTube is connected to it. So you can post videos on there.
Yes, and I think that's a good idea. I think you get paid in Bitcoin, so or digital currencies. Yeah.
Yeah, so worth exploring. I also am also going to switch, I think, to Vimeo. Because Vimeo, you may have to pay to store more than 1 or 2 videos, but it's not huge. It's like $8 or $9 a month or something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Might be worth it. Yeah.
Because in 2018, there's so much actually being so much to do, and we'll be reporting about so many really important things that we absolutely need to have backup. And by the way, I remind everybody that Techno Crime Fighters Forum. Sorry, I'm getting, I think, echo from Ramola's microphone. So the Techno Crime Fighters Forum is under the Creative Commons license because we consider these to be public interest broadcasts. So this means that you can download Techno Forum right now, okay? Download it, re-upload it to your channel. You're not going to be sued for that, certainly not from us. And I encourage you to, because just like we saw with the Super Bowl documentary that Paul Marco did, right? If it hadn't been for someone re-uploading it to that channel, this material would be lost now, okay? So this is super important that you do that. If you like Techno Forum, please post it at your channel, please do. And please maybe put a reference back to our channel in case you forget to put the newest shows, and then reference people back, but please repost these videos and make backup copies if you like them. And also in general of any material out there on the internet, I really, really think so. And then of course, if you really like what we do, please go to my website, stop007.org, go to support our fighters, and please donate to all the members, of the JIT, because we all need funds. We all need to buy equipment and shielding, and we have court cases to prepare. And if you know rich people, please, get them to donate, please, because we need to do fundraising. So I'm aware of the time. Ramola, you have to go. So I think today we already crammed so much into today's episode that, we're all exhausted. So shall we wrap up?
Before we close though, maybe Karen could reiterate what people should do to get their names to her, to be added in that list, to be sent off regarding FISA abuses, Karen?
Excuse me. Yes. Okay. I had offered to take the letter that I wrote, which is called The List, or take me off your kill list or your watch list or whatever it is you guys are calling it. I had written a letter that was made into a petition, and now I'm going to be sending the actual letter itself to various entities. And I think Department of Justice to Jeff Sessions is the first place, since they have announced that they are going to be investigating the FISA abuses. And I did ask people to take the very last page of that letter, which I created after the letter, that says, I, and then they put their own name, would also like to be taken off the kill list as described above. And according to the laws and rules, regulations, whatever, cited as well. And then you put your name, you put the name in the blank where it should be, you print it, and then you sign it, and then you put your city and your state so that they know this isn't from the very same place where I am. So we can show them that it's all over the United States, that people are agreeing that this is a methodology being used on them throughout the entire United States. And then you send it to my P.O. box, just that one page, because I will Xerox it over and over and over and over again, depending on how many entities we need to write. But you put that one last page in an envelope, send it to me at P.O. Box 394, and it's Annapolis Junction, and you can abbreviate to ANNAP, period, capital JCT, period, Maryland, MD, that's MD, 20701. And you do that, and I will take the one letter and then put all kinds of, we have maybe a dozen right now, a dozen people, and we'll take all these letters saying, me too, take me off this list too. So you don't have to print out the entire letter again, just that one page. I'm sending one letter, multiple last pages. So that's what I'm going to be doing very soon here.
And people can get that one page off of your petition that's online?
Yes, they can. They don't need to even print it out. It's so short. The last page is so short. All they have to do is just copy it over, print it on a piece of paper, type it on a piece of paper. It doesn't matter. And as long as it says generally something to that effect, that'll be fine. So, people don't have to run the library. All they have to do is go to the site, the iPetition site, where it says, take me off your watch list. And get it from there, or go to my Facebook page and message me, and I'll show it to you. It's there multiple times, but instead of searching for it, go ahead and ask me, and I'll send you the wording for it. So anything to accommodate. But I'll be sending that off in the next week or so. I'd like to send off a copy to the Department of Justice and start sending these take me off your list letters and last pages saying me too,
Wonderful, Karen. I also just remembered I did an article on your petition and posted the petition on my webpage, on my website. People can just go in there, search for Karen Stewart in the search box up there, and you'll find all of her stuff, her recent articles and flyers and so forth. And the link to the iPetition is there, right there in your article on the petition.
The one thing I wanted to show people is this time I was organized enough and I actually put the link to, if you're watching this video here, if you go down, okay, and you expand this text in the description, you will find Karen's petition here under Karen, okay?
Oh, good.
So if you click on this is the site, right? And Karen, you were saying that the bit that people need to quote is where on this site?
Hopefully it's the last page. And if it is not the last page, which says include me too, then I will send them the wording for that last page if they want to email me or text me, because I don't remember if that particular iteration of it had the very last page. It may not, but if they want the wording, it's very brief wording, I will certainly send it to them. And like I said, it's so short they can even just hand print it.
Yeah. See, the other thing is we can also maybe, if you send me the text, I'll put it into a PDF and I'll put it up on your page under the support the fighters. So everything to
will do.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can do the same on that article page on my site. I'll do the same.
I'll do that.
People
It's really good because I think this is one way for people to actually get themselves their name registered with the administration, right? That they too are affected by this. And I think this has, an actual legal consequence. So anybody inside the US can take part. My second question was, how about, for example, Germany is a colony of the United States, officially known to be so, since the Austrian head of Intel said as much. And how about the people in Germany? Because I think all these, in principle, anything outside the US is considered, terrorist land. So we don't have rights here. But given that it's also about surveillance abuses of American intelligence agencies, can victims from Germany, for example, also say, look, I'm being surveyed. We think that you are operational here. We have statements, official statements to that effect. How about people abroad?
Well, that's an interesting question. Maybe somebody can take it upon themselves to print out the letter, collect a lot of signatures, or people can print out the letter, use their own signature, and send it to the American embassy in their country. And then maybe a copy to whoever they think is appropriate in their own country, but definitely send it to the American embassy.
Excellent. And so the person who's actually taking on the Pfizer abuses, what was his name again, so that we know who to...
Department of Justice chief. He's the head of the Department of Justice. His name is Jeff Sessions, Sessions. And then put something in there. This has to do with surveillance abuse, FISA abuse.
Excellent. Because I, for one, really want to get into the American system because I was assaulted in Germany. My case has direct relevance to Anglo-American, Five Eyes type of surveillance abuse. And the fact that it followed me from Britain to Germany, Germany being colonized both by MI6 and by, NSA and other places. I also want to get into the American system and be registered as a victim, especially because Donald Trump's executive order allows to freeze the assets of people abroad. So maybe I could get the assets frozen of these bastards, from a U.S. court. Why not? And yesterday,
try.
Exactly. And yesterday, actually, that's another reason why I encourage everybody to watch that thing I did with Alfred Weber last night about system judo, because Alfred, who's a longtime judge and a war crimes tribunal judge, he also talked about what sort of which countries can be used to basically persecute crimes against humanity and war crimes. And he was pointing out that us as a civilian population being assaulted by the militaries and with military weapons is a war crime. All right. And these weapons are against the Geneva Conventions. Everything that's being done to us is against the Geneva Conventions. And these are crimes against humanity. And I think 116 countries can use their national courts to actually, actually prosecute these people. So we should really look into that. And by the way, the thing about so this is about the International Criminal Court. There are 3 or 4 countries who are not signatories to the International Criminal Court, and actually that is the US, China, Russia, and Israel. So these 4 cannot, but you can, prosecute other stuff in the US courts. It's now a game of legislation. So the game that they played against us, well, we can play it against them. But certainly, I would like to get on the list if I may, and it's a good idea to send it to the embassies, I think. But everybody who sends it to their embassies, so I think maybe we should write up a quick guidance on how to do that. I'll write something and put it up on the page. But everybody who sends it to the embassy, please make a backup copy of whatever you send, because that might be, again, relevant for court cases and for prosecuting these people.
And maybe by return receipt or something that gives them a receipt saying it was delivered.
Exactly. Registered post, yeah.
Yeah, and along those lines, although this is a larger subject and we can talk about it another time, I was speaking with someone who's a wonderful activist whom I hope to podcast with shortly, and we discussed the possibility, well, I'm doing this already, but we discussed the possibility of all of us together writing cease and desist letters, not just as a legal action, but as a public action, and naming all the fusion centers, law enforcement, local law enforcement, local FBI, local fusion center, as well as the utilities locally, whether it's Comcast, Verizon, FedEx, UPS, anybody whose trucks you've seen harassing you, stalking you, directing energy weapons at you, anybody involved, any company that's involved, any agency that's involved, any so-called authority involved, including your city council, your mayor, etc., etc. Name them. We're into naming and shaming. Name them, write a letter, a cease and desist letter that spells out what they've been doing, ask them to cease and desist from this. And we'll follow it up. We'll put it all together, get all of our letters together, create a common website, and put it on the website for the world to see. And do the kind of decentralizing and redundancy that you were talking about, Katherine. Make sure it's online in a couple places. So we let people know that what's going on is actually going on, because media is not going to cover it. And then follow it up with a request. And again, this is going to be a huge campaign. We're going to have to take the military intelligence industrial complex on. We're going to have to ask for a ban on these weapons, right? And how to go about that, who to approach, etc., no doubt are all right issues to consider and talk about and figure out. So that's something, hopefully coming down the pike very soon.
Well, 18 U.S. code starts to, I mean, it's a place to start, because it basically defined these types of weapons as weapons of mass destruction, and it outlines in various sections the fact that it shouldn't be used by civilians on civilians. It shouldn't be used by military on civilians. So that's one place to start. They're violating their own, the laws of this country,
Absolutely.
And we'll cite that.
Yeah, and also in the interview yesterday, Alfred mentioned the particular part of the Geneva Conventions that this is violating. So the Geneva Conventions, you check who the signatories are of the Geneva Conventions, but these weapons are against the Geneva Conventions, and what's being done is also against it.
Yeah, any treaties we know of, we need to include too. Now that is somewhere that I didn't venture into with my letter, so that needs to be dug out as well.
I've been doing a bit of that digging, so I can share that, and Tracy has as well. So we can put our information together, definitely. But you're right; these are the terms in which we begin to start speaking. In terms of the conventions, the treaties, the international laws that are being flouted, as these militaries and intelligence agencies are happily using these deadly weapons on humans and destroying our lives. So I'm sorry, but they're going to have to be court-martialed for this. They're going to have to be prosecuted. They're going to have to be publicly exposed and publicly indicted. Yeah, thank you. I know I don't have to worry about that. I've always got you to say that.
I will always be the bad cop saying that, but I have to get it into the word death penalty into every episode of Techno Forum. It's like a challenge I've got against myself here.
I personally would like to see them jailed for life. I'd like to see this entire industry, the electronic warfare weapons industry, which is being used against humans. I'd like to see it, dismantled to the ground. And I'd like to see all these rogue intelligence agencies as well that are engaging in this extraordinary sport of crimes against humanity. What to them is sport, but is a massive criminal operation. So I'd like to see every one of these intelligence agencies dismantled. And I do know that, the last person who said he'd like to see all those intelligence agencies dismantled had his brains blown out. But I don't think I'm the only one saying it anymore. I think many of us are saying it.
I want to see them dismantled, and I want to see the heads dead. Okay. I'm in with that one, I'm raising the stakes here.
Great. On which note, we should probably say goodbye to everybody and wish everyone a lovely day.
Yeah, I just would like to brush up one last time, because this is the 50th episode. I just would like to remind everybody that the only reason we're here today after the 50th episode is because of Dr. Paul Marco. So this episode is entirely in his memory, entirely dedicated to him. And we promise him that we'll do our utmost to carry his work forward and literally make him and Mindy proud of what they have created, because they really helped to save humanity. So these are my final parting words, thanks to Mindy and for everything that she has done for us, because without her, we wouldn't have been here for 50 episodes. We just wouldn't be here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Mindy and Paul. That's a wonderful dedication, and I echo it wholeheartedly.
As do I.
Yes. So I think on this note, see you next week. Kick some ass in the meantime, people.
Yeah.